and the whole of the
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Rise City Live on this 4th of July weekend. I hope you've had a great weekend so far, and my prayer is that this experience will be great for you too. My name is Brandon Grant, and I'm the lead pastor here at Rise City Church, and for those checking out Rise for the first time, we are so excited to have you with us. In this season that we've been strictly online, we have been amazed and so grateful with how many new people we've been able to connect with. And we'd also love to connect with you too. The simplest way to do that is to text the word Rise City, that's all one word, Rise City, to 484848. Fill out the quick form that will be sent to your phone, and one of our team members will quickly be in touch with you to provide you more information about Rise City, as well as we just want to learn a little bit more about you. Also, if you are in the San Diego area and you send that text, you're going to receive a free Chick-fil-A sandwich just for participating with us online today. Finally, I also want everyone that's watching to know that we want to be here for you. We're currently living in some challenging times on so many levels, and we believe that we need to be there for one another now more than ever. We also believe that we need to seek Jesus. We need to seek His heart, and we need to seek His ways. And so with that in mind, please know that our pastoral staff is always available to meet with you and to pray with you should you desire. You can simply text the word CARE to 484848, fill out the form sent to your phone, and then one of our team members will reach out to set up a time for us to meet, to pray, and to connect together. You can also email any prayer request you have at any time to prayers@risecitychurch.com, and we promise that we as a staff, as well as our prayer team, will be praying for those requests you send in. So once again, it's so great having everyone together for this worship experience. Let's continue now on our time together with some singing.
Here we go. There's revival and it's spreading like a wildfire in my heart. Sunday morning, hallelujah, and it's lasting all week long. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? It's the rhythm of a gospel song. Oh, once you choose it, you can't lose it. 'Cause there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. I gotta know just why singing in my soul. I got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I got a heart overflowing 'cause I've been restored. There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. No, there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. With the valleys that I wander, turn the mountains that I can't climb. Oh, you are with me, you never leave me. 'Cause there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. I gotta know just why singing in my soul. I got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I got a heart overflowing 'cause I've been restored. There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. No, there ain't nothing gonna steal my joy. Come on. Oh, 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 oh. Come on. Clap your hands and stomp your feet till you find that gospel beat. 'Cause He's all you'll ever need. All you'll ever need. Clap your hands and stomp your feet. You find that gospel beat. 'Cause He's all you'll ever need. All you'll ever need. I got no church choir singing in my soul. I got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful. I gotta know just why singing in my soul. I got a sweet salvation and it's beautiful.
Well, we have some big news that I'm excited to let you guys know about. We alluded to it last week, but it's now just 1 week away. Next Sunday on July 12th, 9-11 a.m., we plan to gather here on site and reopen for physical worship services. Now, that's our current plan, and we are pre-recording this on Thursday, July 1st, so things could change, but our plan is to reopen for physical services next Sunday, July the 12th. And it's our desire to do the best that we can to create an environment where you can worship and celebrate without lots of worry. For us, that means that we're staying up to date with any and all new developments, as well as trying to look at San Diego County's ordinances and the CDC guidelines to help inform us about the best measures to implement to ensure your safety to the best of our ability. So here are a few things that are so important for you to know as we get set to reopen on site here next week. All right, so first, due to government regulations, we will be limiting our total attendance capacity at each service. This means that we're asking those of you who wish to join with us here on site to reserve your spot in advance. Now, you should receive in your e-news that form, and so you can fill that out to reserve your spot. If you're not subscribed to the e-news, then please make sure to do so you can subscribe your spot each week through the e-news. But you can also RSVP, where the form is also going to be available on our app, website, Facebook group, and once space is full in each service, we're not going to be able to take any more attenders, so make sure that you sign up as soon as you can. As guidelines permit, we're going to continue to increase the number of people we can have here in the building during each service. Now, for those of you that don't get RSVP'd in time, or those of you who are still a little bit leery and not comfortable in returning to physical worship services here on site, I want you to please know that we're going to continue to offer the same quality online services that we've been offering since the start of COVID-19. The online service will be available on demand each Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll also broadcast the service live at our new time of 10 a.m. on Sundays, live through our app, website, Facebook, and YouTube. Second, for those who do attend one of our on-site physical services, we are asking that adults please wear a face covering in the lobby area of the church where social distancing is more difficult. Masks will not be needed here in the auditorium during the service itself, however. Additionally, we are going to be opening a side entrance that has direct access to this auditorium that will allow any attenders to avoid the lobby area altogether should you so wish. No matter which entrance you choose, hand sanitizing stations will be provided. Third, we are going to be offering kids ministry for 5th grade and under in their normal kids rooms with many of their same leaders. But just like the adult service, our kids numbers are going to be limited, so we are asking that you'd include the number of children when you are filling out the RSVP form each week. Middle school and high school are going to continue to have their services here on site Thursday nights, at least throughout the rest of the summer. In addition to our current background screenings, our safety trainings, as well as ongoing leadership development for our adult leaders, our teams will now be adhering to the COVID guidelines proposed by the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. And these protocols were created with Youth Day camps in mind, an environment that we feel represents very well the environment children experience within Rise City Kids. Now, saying that, as a parent, I'm asking the same question I'm assuming that you are wondering, and that's, will kids need to wear face masks? The short answer is no. Per those guidelines provided by the San Diego County Supervisors, masks will not be required for kids. You can see all those guidelines that we are following in detail. Just make sure to visit our website. Upon entry into the lobby, families will check in their children after a quick touchless temperature check, so beep. That will be made to ensure that every kid is checked in and does not have a fever. They'll then be placed in a small group of other kids in their age group that's going to be limited to 10 children. Those children will create a stable youth group and will not intermingle with any other children while in our program outside of those that are assigned in their small group. Within their small groups, kids may interact during that time with all the activities without a mask or social distancing. But when kids are not engaged in any of the small group activities, such as during large group teaching time and worship, kids will sit on socially distanced dots provided on the floor. Adult leaders, just in case you're curious, will be required in the kids ministry to wear a face covering during the entirety of the program, but their face coverings will actually be a clear plastic shield because we believe it's so important for kids to be able to see full facial expressions from their leaders so they can best interact and engage. Overall, we're wanting to do our best as we continue trying to provide a loving and life-giving environment for your kids while respecting the current health guidelines. Like I said, if you have any questions about our reopening protocol, and in particular kids ministry guidelines, please visit our website. Whew, all right, that was a mouthful, but we want to be as thorough as we can so you can know what to expect. And while we recognize this is not ideal or what you may remember pre-COVID, it is our current reality. So I just ask that you have a little grace with us as well as with others throughout this process. We hope, just like I presume many of you do, to be able to gather without these limitations. But we also want to be honorable throughout the process, realizing that so many people have so many different views and risks associated with this pandemic. So let's do our best to make the best of this situation. Let's gather together, whether it's here on site or you're online, to worship our great God, who we must keep our eyes on and follow no matter what throughout these uncertain times. So with that in mind, hey, how about another song? And let's sing this song together, making the lyrics of this next song our prayers as well as our path forward.
You are here, moving in our midst. And I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. And I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. And I worship you, I worship you. You are here, in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, Lord, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are.
So I remember lying in bed one night, fast asleep, when suddenly I was roughly awoken as 3 burly men came barreling into my room, pulled me out of the covers, blindfolded me, then threw me in a car that sped all around to who knows where, then leaned me by the hand to my feet on a ledge with no idea how high I was or where I was, and I was told to jump. How's that for a start of a story? Well, unfortunately, it gets less cool as it goes on. No, I wasn't kidnapped by the CIA for some clandestine operation, nor was I being sworn into a secret society of ninja assassins. Not then, anyway. It was actually just a bunch of rowdy frat boys hazing a young college freshman who thought it would be so cool to pledge their house. But as cool as it all sounded, in that moment, as I was standing somewhere in central Illinois in the middle of January without a coat, being told to blindly fall into the unknown for no obvious reason other than peer pressure, I had a very clear and distinct thought run through my head. And I should mention, this was all happening during what was known as Hell Week, where a few hours earlier, I just finished up mopping vomit off a fraternity toilet and had slept a total of maybe 5 hours over the past 3 days. So there I am, shivering in the cold night air, scared to death, asking myself what any rational, though slightly sleep-deprived person would ask. I said, why am I doing this? What is happening right now? But peer pressure being what it was and not wanting to look scared, I did it, trusting that these guys, though mostly idiots, weren't wanting to go to jail and weren't going to drop me. And of course, as you can see, I didn't die. Maybe a little brain damage, you've asked my wife, but I was fine. It was a trust fall, and there were some football players underneath waiting to catch me, then offer some moral lecture about the importance of trusting your fraternity brothers. I don't know, yada, yada, yada. I wasn't listening. But even after I landed and I was fine, I still found myself seriously asking if all of this was worth it. And not just the trust fall, everything. The hazing, sleep deprivation, the after-party cleanup that made me question whether it was actually human beings living in that house or some lesser animal. Why was I doing any of it? Was it worth it? But I stuck it out, finished Hell Week, and became a member of the fraternity, a brother. I even became president a few years later, as odd as that sounds. So, was it worth it? I mean, some very impactful things happened during those 4 years. Would I do it again? I don't know, probably not. I'm sorry if any of my fraternity brothers are watching this. No, I don't think it was worth going through all that nonsense. For all of you kids out there about to go off to college, I wouldn't recommend it. But those moments of self-reflection arise in our lives all the time, don't they? I bet every one of you could tell a story of a difficult time you had to seriously ask, why are you doing this? What are you doing? Is it worth it? I still ask myself that question almost every time I go for a run. I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? It's so hard. To which my wife yells from the kitchen window, you haven't made it out the front yard. She's so judgmental. But it's when things are toughest, when we're pushed to the limit, when you're feeling the pressure or the pain, that we ask serious and hard questions about the value of what we're doing. When we're hurting or suffering for something, it's normal to analyze and ask if what we're going through is truly worth the outcome, the price I'm paying to get there. Maybe your job is getting complicated. And so you're asking a ton of questions about, is this the career you want? Maybe you're trying to stay healthy and finding it taxing and challenging. And you ask if all the work and self-sacrifice is going to actually pay off. Maybe California passes another inane law that makes it seem more and more like this state is being run by a gaggle of circus clowns. And you look at the cost of living and ask, is this worth it? Hello to all my Idaho friends watching. Or maybe you're in a relationship that's becoming a real struggle and you can't seem to find common ground. Should we bother trying to make it work or let it go? We face these kinds of tough questions all the time, analyzing, is it worth it? And just maybe some of you have had that same question arise in your heart when it comes to following Jesus. Does it ever feel like he just asks too much sometimes and maybe it's not worth it? All this die to yourself, lay your life down for others, love those who mistreat you and speak horribly about you sometimes. Be generous even when money and resources are getting tighter by the minute. Speak in love and kindness and forgiveness when what you want to do is scream and yell and throw sharp objects through the internet, which isn't possible, I've tried. Or call to live by faith and step out blindfolded in the cold when he calls, completely unsure what's beneath you. Have you ever given away or sacrificed something you wanted, taken the less easy and secure route because you knew it was what God asked for, and yet the whole time found yourself, if you're just being honest, asking the question, wait, why am I doing this? Will it be worth it? Can I just be brutally honest with you for a minute? There are times when I, as a pastor, still find myself asking that question. And I don't mean I find myself questioning whether I believe in God and want to be a Christian. I mean, there are times when it just seems so attractive to kind of let it slide a bit, to maybe not take it so seriously, not take so many risks or put myself out there. Just let myself get angry and take a side. If you notice that it's actually way easier being angry than choosing to love and offering grace, it's easier, it's soothing to just get mad. And hoarding what I want for myself and thinking about my own comfort and security is just quite a bit smoother than the whole Jesus model of lay it all down and give it away. I don't like it. Couldn't I just phone it in a bit, just live a normal life and do what I want instead of all the hard stuff he keeps asking me to do? And again, I'm just being real with you guys. The past few weeks haven't really helped that. There have been more moments than I'm proud to admit lately where I have found myself asking, why am I doing this? Is this really worth it? What if it's not? And I know what God wants of me, but I feel hesitant and shaken at times. Is the cost too high? Will it be worth it in the end to keep doing all of this, keep putting up with this, I'm not looking for sympathy. It's just hard sometimes, and it seems so attractive to take an easier route. It's not just me, right? Do you ever feel it? Here's the thing, it's not just us. I have to admit, it's actually a little comforting, actually, knowing that even the Apostle Peter wrestled with this. And he actually straight up said it right to Jesus' face. There was a moment in their time together, after going through a number of ups and downs, when a rich and powerful man comes to Jesus, looking to follow him, to join the movement, the kind of guy they needed. The kind of guy who could make all their lives a little better. He had money, he had influence. This was it. This was our moment. Peter's life could get better. But Jesus shocks everyone by looking at this man and telling him, if you want to follow me, cool, but first, go give all away your possessions and money to the poor. Then come and follow me. To which the man says, goes away sad because his money was too important to him. And can you blame him? I'm sure in the moment, the man probably ran the math in his head and thought, Jesus, you seem like a great guy, but there's no way that's worth it. You seem great and all, but I'm loaded. I got so much. I can't give it all away. And while this is happening, Peter's looking on and basically has a mini meltdown moment that I can definitely relate to. In Matthew 19, Peter straight up looks at Jesus and says this, we've left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us? Can you hear it in his voice? Jesus, hold on a second. Following you has been hard. I left my business. I miss my family. I'm not exactly making any money following you around. People think we're a bunch of weirdos. You keep asking us to do all this crazy, hard stuff. And now you're saying that even those who have a lot have to give it away to follow you? What am I going to get out of this? Is it going to be worth it in the end? Peter, like many of us, was looking at Jesus saying, why am I doing this? And I think it's the heart of this very question that led Jesus a bit earlier in the story to tell a short little parable about the kingdom. Now, when Jesus speaks about the kingdom, it's a phrase he uses that meant to see him as king and join him, to be a part of what he's doing, to enter into his movement and follow him. And there's this question of, is that worth it? Is it a good idea to follow this king and seek to join his kingdom? Because sometimes this king asks his people to do hard stuff. And he's telling rich people to give their money away. Most kings want to get richer. He gives this answer in Matthew 13. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. So Jesus compares the offer to join him to a man who probably had spent his whole life as some poor tenant farmer working someone else's land. Then one day as he's digging another hole to plant another seed for some other rich guy, maybe his shovel hits something hard and he probably thinks it's a rock, but as he looks closer, it's not. To his surprise, he realizes it's buried treasure, which was actually normal in those days because banks weren't a very safe way to store your money, so people would often bury it in the ground. And after looking it over, he kind of realizes he's not going to be able to just take it home. He comes up with a plan. He'll just buy the field, and then the treasure will be included with it. But wait, that would cost a ton. He's poor. He does the math, and he realizes he would have to sell everything he owns to buy this field. But when he runs the numbers, it makes sense, because this is worth more than everything he currently has. So he heads home to start planning what must have been quite the garage sale, right? I've always had this picture in my head of what that must have been like. Can you imagine his family, what they were thinking when he runs home from work and just starts taking everything out of the house and drawing out the yard, like, honey, I'm home, great news, we're selling everything. Everything? What? He starts dragging out the couch and grabbing pots and pans, and his wife's like, dear, I was making dinner. Great bake sale. You're a genius, babe. The dog starts barking, and he's like, Fido could get me $20. So his wife's freaking out. The neighbors are probably like, what's Bob doing now? The kids are climbing out the back window to bury their Xbox in the backyard so dad doesn't sell it. It's been quite a scene. People would have thought this guy lost his mind. What's he doing? He's going crazy. This is weird behavior. What got into him? Did he lose his mind and become irrational? No, he didn't. In that moment, he knew that giving up everything was worth it. He weighed it out. He saw what was being offered to him, and he recognized that no matter what the cost, it would be worth it to seek that treasure. And here's Jesus saying to us, to you, to me, right here and now, no matter what you're going through, no matter how difficult it may feel, no matter how hard or painful the trial you are in, no matter how much loss you may think obeying him and choosing to follow him is going to cost you, he is worth it all. You see, it's not just about sacrifice and losing and, I follow Jesus, so my life's just going to be terrible. It's about ultimate worth and value. He's saying that following him is more precious than anything else life has to offer you. So losing it doesn't matter. This is what he meant to us when he said, if you want to save your life, choose to lose it. Because the cost of following him is not nearly as nearly in comparison to the gain that you receive from being part of his kingdom. It's worth losing everything else. You know, there were others in the Bible who saw and understood this. Lots of them, like King David, who ruled an entire nation and could have anything he wanted whenever he wanted it. But this is what he said he wanted most. He wrote this in Psalm 27:4. He said, "One thing I ask from the Lord, one thing. This is what I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and seek him in his temple." David said the most valuable thing he could ever have, beyond kingdoms and empires, wealth and power. He said, "I just want to gaze on your beauty, God." I have to be honest, that verse wrecks me every time I read it. For years, I've gone back to it and prayed it over my life and said, "God, show me in my depths, to my core, that to sit and just gaze on your beauty is worth everything." Because I keep forgetting. And I keep looking for other things. I keep losing sight of the reality that he is worth it. And the Apostle Paul would say something very similar years later. After spending his entire life being trained in all the right religious rituals and being the right kind of person that people respected and this is the kind of life you want, he actually met God face to face in the person of Jesus, and it undid him. It ruined him for the better. To the point that he could say this in a letter to the church in Philippi. He said, "What is more, I consider everything a loss compared to or because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake I have lost all things, but I consider them garbage that I may gain Christ. What I gave up to get Christ is worthless in comparison to what I gained. He is the treasure buried in that field, and all I have and all I could ever have is garbage next to knowing him." Paul is saying what so many have found and understood before and since, that there is only one thing in the entire universe that is truly worth living for beyond question. Only one thing promises to pay off and never let us down. And that's why David said, "It's the one thing I want." It's Jesus. It's God. It's him. You can never give enough to have more of God, for he is always faithful. He always comes through on his promises. He offers us true life like nothing else can. What else can make that promise? What else could be more worth living for? Money, jobs, fame, relationship? What else could give my life so much meaning and purpose and come with that kind of promise? But again and again and again, I'm just being honest, I lose sight. I forget. I get caught in the emotional whirlwind, the fears of the moment, the piling stack of bills, pressure from life, and the whispers that fill my mind that maybe this isn't going to work out. Is it worth it? The desire to lash out and let anger and bitterness soothe me rather than choosing his way. I forget, and I need to remind myself. I need to look back on what he has done to see what he's always done. He's always been faithful. To remind myself that I don't do this because of guilt or fear or just some hope of a future afterlife, but because knowing him is worth it. Following him is a treasure, and it's worth everything. And when he calls me to obey, it always pays off in the end. There's nothing the world can offer me as beautiful as him. There's no one I could follow as true, as noble, as faithful as Jesus. So when I'm in these seasons like this, where I find myself just questioning and doubting and kind of wavering, I ask God to give me King David's attitude, who also said this in the Psalms. He said, "I have always been mindful of your failing love and have lived in reliance on your faithfulness." God, don't ever let me lose sight of your unfailing love or stop relying on your faithfulness. Remind me when I'm tempted for an easier path and my mind starts to question whether following you is worth it. The answer is always yes. Remind me of that young, scared frat boy trying to figure out what it meant to be content in life by trying anything and everything I could to make me happy. Who finally heard you speak, saying, "Come and follow me." And I was so scared of the cost. Man, I struggled. It wasn't one of those instant come to Jesus moments. I didn't just see the treasure and start the garage sale in my life. I wrestled. But eventually I said yes. And no, my life did not instantly get easier. It was terrible for a while. Trying to follow him while living in a fraternity was brutal. But on so many Friday nights when I would lock myself in my room while Roman-like parties were raging outside my door, I would sit and talked to him. And right there, alone in my room, he met me. And he changed my life. And it was worth it. And at my lowest, when I cried out to him and I said, God, I can't do this alone. I'm struggling. Help me. It's too hard. He heard me. A short time later, this beefy-looking blonde guy named Brandon approached me in the gym and asked me if I want to do a Bible study with him. 20 years later, we're still doing Bible studies together. God always comes through. I remember finishing college and God telling me to go back to my hometown, which I did not want to do. No way. I had no idea why I was going there. I have a job. I was like, you just want me to go? Fine. I went. And he opened a door for me to start ministry as a career, to learn what this would look like, to do as a calling. He took care of me. I remember shortly after that, spending time in Colorado, serving in a church, and finding out one day my senior pastor was into some pretty deep and dark sin. If there's ever a time for me to ask, why am I doing this? It was then. And even though in that darkness, God met me. He carried me. He showed me his love. He did amazing things. And shortly after that, he asked me to take another scary adventure, another step that made no sense. And I moved again, and I went somewhere that I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just trusted him. And there I met the most amazing woman in the world, where after 12 years of marriage, I can without hesitation say that was worth it. God called the two of us to move to Kansas, of all places, and lead a youth ministry for not much money. I remember starting a family on a youth pastor's salary, just struggling to make ends meet, realizing the only way I could do it was to sell my car. It was a truck that I loved. It was like the last part of my old life. Like, I raged inside. Is this worth it? It's too hard. It's too much struggle. I don't know if I want to do ministry anymore. I'm tired of struggling. But I obeyed. A few short months later, after handing over the keys to my truck, a person I never met before was handing me the keys to a brand new van, completely free and paid for. Because God is always faithful. Always. Of course, during that season, I remember God speaking to Julie and I about our next step. He was calling us to help Brandon and Jamie plan a new church. We were not expecting, though, when the call came, to hear, we're moving to California. California? I don't want to go there. I don't know anybody. What would I do? But I knew God was calling. We said yes because our faithful God was asking us to. So I remember going to my boss. I was working at a church at the time, and I said, I need to quit. I'm moving to California to plant a church. My boss looked at me. He's like, "Whoa, you got a job there?" "No." "What do you do for money?" "I don't know." "Do you know anybody there?" "Nope, never been there." But called a realtor, put my house on the market. It didn't sell. Packed up all my stuff and moved to the other side of the country, where yet again I found myself questioning, is it worth it? On the one hand, moving to the other side of the country was an adventure. It was exciting. But the housing market had just crashed. So the economy was tanking. Couldn't sell my house. And didn't have a job. So we moved out here. And we had to live in this small little apartment. My wife was hoping to continue growing our family, but we couldn't because I had to take this kind of rough job, just painting houses. Making less than it was costing me to live here. I know some of you know what that's like. I remember coming home some days and just sitting like this, like, God, what are you doing? We were burning through the little savings that we had pretty quick. Didn't know what was next. And I remember it all coming to a head at one Sunday morning. We hadn't started Rise yet. We weren't even sure this was going to work. Would anyone come to Rise when we started it? We were helping another church down in Chula Vista called Momentum, and I was helping with the music. And I was down there, and I was standing out in the courtyard, just wrestling with all the fear and the uncertainty and the questions about whether or not this was going to work. And I was talking to somebody. I was holding my iPad, and the clip broke, and my iPad fell straight down onto the ground and crashed. And I remember just pausing and looking down, and I just lost it. I just started bawling. My friend was with me, he's like, bro, you okay? And I just picked it up, and I'm like, I gotta go. I got in my car, and I drove to a Starbucks nearby, and I just sat there by myself. Didn't order anything, because I didn't have any money. And I was just so uncertain. Was this the right decision? Was it worth it? I turned on a little Pandora or something on my phone just to play some music. And I remember just crying. People around me probably thought I was weird. What's this guy sitting there crying in a Starbucks for? But something happened in that moment. A song came on. And the lyrics were pretty simple, but in that moment, I just remember God speaking so clearly to me. He asked me this question. He said, Pete, have I ever failed you? Has it ever not been worth it? Have I ever not shown myself faithful? Have I ever not come through for you? And as I'm just sitting there listening to this song in Chula Vista, I had to say, never once. You've never let me down. You've never failed me. And you won't this time either. So I stood up, I got back in my car, went back to the church, and just said, God, I trust you. Over the next few months, I found an amazing job. We sold our house, found another place to live that we really liked, had another kid, started Rise City Church, took off. Now, 7 years later, I'm sitting here inside this building, amazing people I work with. He has never failed me, never once. He's never let me down, and he never will. And if you're sitting there asking if it's worth it, the answer is yes, it is worth it. And so I wanted to end our time today by sharing this song that came on that day at Starbucks, a song that I actually played the first Rise City service because it meant so much to me. And I just want to share it with us today and remind ourselves that He is faithful.
Standing on this mountaintop, looking just how far we've come, knowing that for every step you were with us, kneeling on this battleground, seeing just how much you've done, knowing every victory is your power in us, scars and struggles on the way, but with joy our hearts can say, yes, our hearts can sing. Never once did we ever walk alone. Never once did you leave us on our own. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. Kneeling on this battleground, seeing just how much you've done, knowing every victory is your power in us. Scars and struggles on the way, but with joy our hearts can say, yes, our hearts can say. Never once did we ever walk alone. Never once did you leave us on our own. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. You are faithful, God, you are faithful. Scars and struggles on the way,
with joy our hearts can say that never once did we ever walk alone. Carried by your constant grace, held within your perfect peace. Never once, no, I never walked alone. Never once have I ever walked alone. Never once did you leave me on my own. Oh, you are faithful, God. You are faithful. In every step we are breathing in your grace. Oh, evermore I'll be breathing out your grace. 'Cause you are faithful, God. You are faithful. You are faithful, God. You've been faithful. You're so faithful, God. You are faithful. You are faithful, God. You are faithful. Well, guys, as we end, I just want to say, as we always end, may we be a people who wake up, rise, and shine. May we wake up to Jesus, the faithful one, who is worth it, who everything he offers us is better than anything he asks us to give up. And may we rise to life as we realize that following him is so amazing. We take those leaps. We make those tough decisions to persevere, to stand through the trials, to do the thing he's asking us to do, and we experience the life that he promises us we find when we follow him. And then let's shine to others. Let the world see our faithful God in our lives. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thanks again so much for joining us for Rise City Live. And hey, next week, remember, we're going to be back here on site 9 and 11 a.m. Unless, we kind of write our plans in pencil right now because you just never know what may change. But our plans are we'll be here next Sunday or 10 a.m. online. So make sure to join with us. Also, can I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued generosity. As we close out our service, I want to continue to encourage you to keep being that loving, life-giving church by expressing it through your generosity. I'm amazed at all the ways you continue to give and the way that God allows us to use the resources you generously give to meet the needs of other people. And so I want to encourage you to continue to worship through generosity by going online or our app. You can also send in a physical check. But thank you for the ways you continue to be generous. And we promise that we will do our absolute best to continue to appropriate your generosity to hopefully impact people's lives in the name of Jesus. So as we close out today, I want to encourage you, if you are with a group of people or even on your own, take some time to reflect on these discussion questions to help bring the message not just staying in the head, but to move it 12 inches down into the heart. See you guys next week.